The slap heard around the world. If you didn't see it live, then you've almost certainly heard about it by now. But an incident happened during the Oscars last night that made jaws drop. And today I want to take a few minutes to break this down and explore this situation from a Christian perspective as far as what went wrong and what went right. While the people involved in this incident are celebrities, this is a situation that any one of us could be placed in, either as the person whose spouse, family, or friend is being mocked, or as the person who gets slapped. So there is certainly something that we can all learn from this, and that is the goal of this video. Now, I know that most of us these days don't usually bother with watching the Oscars anymore, and the number of people who tune into it to watch it has been dwindling each year. So much so that the Oscars has actually turned to people like Instagram influencers in an attempt to rekindle interest in what used to be a highly anticipated award show. The leading cause of this mass exodus of people caring about the Oscars, though, is simply that people don't want to listen to 3 hours of celebrities and hosts spouting off their woke agenda compared to the good old days where celebrities would simply use their time in front of the microphone to thank all of the people that made the award possible for them, with God and Jesus being mentioned more times than not. That said, though, if you, like me, didn't watch the Oscars, you were probably shocked at your news and social media feed this morning with the story of Will Smith slapping the pants off of Chris Rock during last night's ceremony. The video was certainly shocking, and I know that a lot of people are covering this story, but I just wanted to take a moment to look at this from a Christian perspective, because there is certainly a lot that we can take away from this. And while there's a lot wrong with what happened, there is one thing that I think was done very well, and we can all learn from it. So to start, let me just begin by playing the clip for you in case you have yet to see it.
Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right? that was a nice one. Okay. I'm out here. Richard. Oh, wow. Wow. Will Smith.
So the first thing that I want to point out is simply the power of words. I just want to start by saying that I am a huge fan of comedy if it's done well, especially stand-up, and I am not a supporter of the whole cancel culture trend going on right now, especially if it's something that, is regards to something that was said or done years ago. Since we as Christians, we need to believe that people can change, and we need to forgive others as we ourselves have been forgiven. However, it's pretty much a standard rule of comedy that you don't make fun of someone or something for something that they have no control over. You can make fun of someone for the clothes they wear, but if they don't have 2 cents to rub together, then you certainly don't shame the rags that they pulled out of a donation bin as the only thing to keep them warm. You can make fun of the way that someone styles their hair, but if they're going through chemo, then the last thing that you make fun of is their hair falling out. And while Jada Smith wasn't going through chemo, her hair was falling out due to alopecia, and there wasn't anything that she could do about it. So while yes, I do fully support the First Amendment and freedom of speech, at the same time, Chris Rock's comment, which was that he was excited to see her in G.I. Jane 2, a direct jab at her now shaved head, it was completely out of line, insensitive, and cruel. Of course, though, the old adage says, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And yes, while words can never cut or bruise flesh, they do have the power to cut deeper and leave longer lasting scars than any weapon ever could. Children and spouses all over the world have had their identity shaped and defined by emotionally abusive fathers, mothers, and siblings, all telling them that they are worthless, fat, ugly, a disgrace, an embarrassment, useless, etc. They carry these false narratives around like chains, weighing them down and constantly reminding them of the false limitations that they believe in. We as Christians need to be mindful of the words that we speak due to the power that they have. As Ephesians 4:29 says, "Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear." We also read in Proverbs 12:18, "There is one whose rash words are like sword thrusts, but the tongue of the wise brings healing." Lastly, James 1:26 tells us, "If anyone thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his heart, this person's religion is worthless." So, bottom line, whilst Will Smith's actions were absolutely wrong, which will be the next part of this video that we're going to discuss, but Chris Rock, he was also wrong himself in tearing down and making fun of someone who has to have been going through a lot. It's one thing for guys like me, once we start losing our hair, we just shave it off, and usually we look better for it, or at least that's what I tell myself. So don't go tearing down my bald look in the comments either. But for a woman to lose her hair against her will, I can only imagine the anxiety and the lack of confidence that can come out of that. So to put on a brave face and to go into a publicly broadcasted event only to be made fun of is probably making her worst nightmare or anyone's worst nightmare of going through that simply come to life. So moving on to Will Smith's actions. I just want to start by saying that I am a big fan of Will Smith's work. He has put out several movies that highlight great Christian principles, with The Pursuit of Happiness and King Richard being two of my favorites. I also know that Will is a professed Christian, although he has certainly said some things that seem to veer on the side of the prosperity gospel teaching, which is worrisome. But I know that he has also been, through a lot recently himself with the temporary separation that he had with his wife. I also completely understand the anger that can arise in any man when someone is taking a jab at your wife, especially if that jab is done publicly for the whole world to see and in front of all your and her peers and colleagues. However, Will's response to the situation was not at all Christian, even if that response was the first thing that most of us red-blooded males would have had pop into our minds in that situation. As Proverbs 12:16 tells us, though, the vexation of a fool is known at once, but the prudent ignores an insult. So what should have Will done? Well, first, Will should have given the situation to the Lord instead of trying to handle it himself. As Romans 12:17 through 19 tells us, repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. If possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Secondly, Will should have repaid Chris's hateful words with a blessing. And the next verse from the passage we just read in Romans 12 tells us just that, which says, to the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. For by doing so, you will heap burning coals on his head. Imagine how powerful it would have been if instead of Will getting up and slapping Chris, he simply kept his cool. Then when he got up for his acceptance speech, he went on to say something along the lines of, Chris, I know you probably didn't mean anything spiteful from your comment, but I just want you to know that your words have hurt both me and my wife. Tonight, I pray that your wife is blessed so that she never has to go through being publicly embarrassed over something that she has no control over, like you've done to my wife here tonight. I imagine the emotional sting of those words and having that sort of light publicly shed on Chris would have had a lingering hurt far worse than any amount of slaps, equivalent to heaping coals on his head. The last thing I want to comment on is the part that I think was handled very well, and that is Chris's reaction to getting slapped. First off, I just have to say that, man, the guy took it well. That was a powerful slap from downtown, and it seems like it more shocked Chris than anything else. More powerful, though, and the part that I really want to shout out, is the de-escalation that happened after. The passage that came to my mind the second I saw it was Matthew 5:39, which says, but if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. Now, we've done a full study on this verse already, and I will link that in the description if you want to check it out. But the main point of this passage isn't that you aren't supposed to defend yourself and that we're just called to surrender ourselves and be mercilessly beaten or anything like that. Instead, it's more so about how we respond to being insulted. So really, in the context of the situation, this passage should have been what Will was thinking about as he was being insulted, although it would be verbally, not physically. However, Chris certainly seemed to be living out this passage in this situation. Not only did he not retaliate, but after Will sat down and kept saying, keep my wife's blanking name out your mouth, Chris even verbally tried to de-escalate the situation by assuring Will that he would stop speaking about her. And I think that does sum up what I have to say on the situation. But I would love to hear from you in the comments what your personal takeaways are, though. Now, if this does happen to be your first time here, though, I do just want to say that this type of video is not what my channel is usually focused on. Instead, it's mainly focused on engaging in in-depth verse-by-verse Bible study and tackling theological or hermeneutical and historical concepts as they come up in Scripture. So if that does sound like something that you would like to check out, then I would invite you to check out the playlist that I will put in the description and on the end screen here. And we've also done a 40-day daily devotional from the great people over at The Chosen, and I would encourage you to check that out as well. But with that, I will sign off, and as always, God bless and keep you.